go round. In the fantasy, what happened? Will it stop turning? Let's find out. Stealth QE for the banks. Rates need to stay high. Changing the CPI data, insist it ain't a lie. Misdirection by the media, keep everyone in line. Get yourself another loan, everything will be just fine. Oops, tax increase. Peasants, how do you feel? Cost of living still okay, or can't afford your meal? Oops, credit delinquencies reach for the sky. Don't you dare to stop and think that this cake might be. Just work 3 part-time jobs on benefits, try to make ends meet. You don't need a steady one to buy that mansion down the street. Some buy mortgages in a CD, or pension funds will gobble up. And when the housing market does implode, bailouts will hit like a truck. Oops, tax increase. Peasants, how do you feel? Cost of living still okay, or can't afford your meal? Oops, credit delinquencies reaching for the sky. Don't you dare to stop and think this cake might be a lie. Let's rationalize rampant shoplifting, make skin color a perk. Blocking all streets for climate change, people can't get to work. Endorse mostly peaceful protests, expecting shops to stay. Won't let you cry about the prices when they eventually move away. All the banks are safe and sound, nothing will go wrong. Jobs gotta looking mighty fine, economy holding strong. Stocks going up while producing less, putting on a show. All but 3 companies in the S&P, thanks for the carry, bro. Oops, tax increase. Peasants, how do you feel? Cost of living still okay, or can't afford your meal? Oops, credit delinquencies reaching for the sky. Don't you dare to stop and think this cake might be a lie. Camel Crew, don't get fooled, there's some crazy times ahead. Best to stay indoors for a while and focus on the windows instead. Stock up on supplies, tell your close ones to do the same. Touch grass when in doubt, put your hands up and put the future in a frame. Oops, tax increase. Peasants, how do you feel? Cost of living still okay, or can't afford your meal? Oops, credit delinquencies reaching for the sky. Don't you dare to stop and think this cake might be a lie. Camel Crew, don't get fooled, there's some crazy times ahead. Best to stay indoors for a while, focus on the windows instead. Stock up on some supplies, tell your close ones to do the same. Touch grass when in doubt, put your hands up, put the future in a frame.
All right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and we are live. So if you could please confirm that you can hear me, that would be very much appreciated. And we will get into today. So first of all, thank you to everyone for showing up. I can see a whole heap of people in the comments. That's really cool. And hopefully someone can confirm you can indeed hear me. That would be really appreciated. I'm just looking for a comment. I know there's a bit of a lag on what I say. Hello, can you hear me? I think it's working. Yes, can hear. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good. So, hi and welcome everyone. This is the CPI live stream. And today I thought we would do what we did last month, more or less. So I wanted to quickly touch on this Congress thing. We'll do that. Then I think we should outline the expectations for CPI, because that will probably be useful to have some context in case anyone's new. I also wanted to point out what the cycles say and tell us what to expect and we'll take it from there, I guess. Then we'll just kill some time until the CPI data is released at 1:30 GMT, which is about 50 minutes time. And then I'm going to have to shoot off and make a members video for the level 3 members, because I imagine there will be some positions to be taking. So that is that. Let's do this Congress thing first, I think. So a whole heap of people were tagging me in this yesterday that allegedly Congress is going to be moving forward with this trading ban. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that this has been going on for a while. This stuff comes out in the news and they just always end up kicking the can down the road. The reason so many people were sort of tagging me in this and mentioning it yesterday is because, of course, on the melt-up chart for pretty much the entire time, we've had this written in yellow at the top. And I should say, to be clear, this is not a necessary requirement. It's just an expectation. Some people seem to think it's a necessary catalyst to top the market. I don't see it that way at all. All it is we saw them do the same thing with Fed officials back here. So back here, they said, for ethical reasons, that's, of course, it's a lie, but that's what they say. They're going to ban the Fed officials from trading stocks. And then, of course, I think what they did was use this distribution here to let the Fed officials out at the top before a bear market. And thus, I was saying that it would be an expectation of mine that we see them do the same thing with Congress at the top. And so far, it seems to be like they're maybe moving forward with it. But again, it's not a catalyst. It's not a requirement. Whether it happens or not is neither here nor there. It's just an expectation. I will say this, with a whole heap of people kind of tagging me in it and pointing at it, I don't think the call is as good as it might seem at first. And the reason I say that is because we don't need all these tabs. Where's the tab? Yeah, if it's passed, and it is still an if, of course, they have a history of kicking the can down the road, as I said, then it might not actually come into effect until 2027. So that, if we're being completely honest, does not really align with a top that comes in the not too distant future. If it's not going to happen until 2027, does that imply that this thing's going to run for a lot longer? Is there a lot more time to go before this thing is actually going to come to fruition? So that remains to be seen. I noticed in the news here that they are indeed pushing forward with it, but as I said, it's probably not going to go ahead until March of 2027. So there's always the outside chance they pull this thing forward. That's certainly possible. And if they don't, maybe the whole idea of this melt up ending in, this year is possibly wrong. Maybe that means that they're going to continue to run this thing, or even that maybe we get an intermediate top and then some kind of bear market and another pump up to 2027, and that's when they let everyone out. So I don't really know, but I thought we should cover that anyway, since a whole heap of people were tagging me in it yesterday. The other thing is, where's this? The expectations for CPI. We are expecting, in case you don't know, to see the CPI data come in colder. And I've been making the case that it's not really a popular idea, it's not a popular narrative, and that most people think CPI is sticky. But I've also been making the case that anything you do to the M2 rate of change presents with about an 18-month lag. So I'm sure you've seen this by now. If you haven't, then go and check out any of the videos from the Saturday weekend deep dives. And other than that, I guess the question is, if CPI comes in lower, then I guess we can hold our hands up and say everything's going according to plan, right? And we expect the cycles and the stock market and risk to do well out of that. If the data is sticky, then I think I've given it enough time now where I have to kind of hold my hands up and say, maybe I'm wrong in this assessment. So it's going to be a big print, certainly the biggest print of the channel history. And it's going to be really interesting. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the cycles. So based on the cycles alone, the cycles for Bitcoin, both a daily and weekly cycle, should be in now, which means, in theory, there should be a full daily and weekly cycle ahead of us. So if the CPI is lower, or even if it's not, the cycles tell us for Bitcoin to expect another bull cycle ahead. And so regardless of the CPI print, the bias should be to the upside here, at least from a cycle perspective. Now, of course, if this cycle is to roll over and fail, okay, then something else is going on. And this is very early in the weekly cycle, and I wouldn't like to think about the implications of that until I see it. But of course, I am on guard for it. But the first thing to point out in terms of what the cycles tell us is Bitcoin has, in theory, got a full daily and weekly cycle ahead of it. So that's a positive. For the stock market, let me zoom in a bit so we can see what's going on here. We are currently on something approximating day 27 of an expected 36 to 44 day cycle. So we could certainly see some upside for a couple more sessions, but a cycle low is coming into focus. Whether it forms where I've got it marked or whether it forms lower down is to be determined. So I wouldn't be surprised if given that we've got a ramp up into CPI, if we see some kind of volatility, some kind of cycle low, and then we can go again. But in terms of the stock market cycle, it's late in its daily cycle. We are about to complete the second daily cycle in this weekly cycle. So that's of note that any kind of pullback here into a cycle low is round about the time that we should expect to see that. And for gold has shown no sign of a daily cycle low. So if you look at this area here, where would it be? I don't see one personally. I think what that does is set us up to see a quick 1, 2, even 3-day decline into a daily cycle low. And that should also form the weekly cycle. There's also an outside chance that maybe it does something like this, and then we have to do a full daily cycle into the next weekly cycle, and that next daily cycle for gold would become the weekly cycle. And invalidation for this would be if we break above the all-time high, above this blue box, in which case then I'm probably going to be thinking that we should probably count this as a week 16 cycle low, which would be early. And on the weekly time frame, it doesn't really look right to me. If I zoom in here, you can see that's not really a clear weekly cycle as far as I'm concerned, but it could be, right? It could be an early week 16 cycle low. And the way we would confirm that as the cycle low that's coming early is to break above this blue range. So I'm ready to be invalidated on this idea and get long, because it doesn't really matter, right? We give up a few points for a certainty. But other than that, I think on a balance of probabilities, we should probably be looking for a decline for gold. So that's what the cycles say leading into CPI. The cycles say Bitcoin's got cycles ahead of it and should really be looking for upside. Otherwise, something is probably a bit wrong under the hood. Gold, like I said, is suggesting that there is some kind of shakeout coming, and I think that shakeout should be viable. And for the stock market, as I said, we're a bit stretched. So some kind of pump and then fade makes sense. And then out of that cycle low, that's where the stop for this position will be moved up underneath. And we should probably be looking for the last leg, I would think. I'm not sure how sustainable this third angle is, but you know, if it does something like this, daily cycle low, and then starts to extend, I mean, when we zoom out, we've now got what looks to be a near vertical stock market move, if this is to play. So I think we're getting stretched. I think we're getting long in the tooth, and yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting few weeks. So that's that. That's what the cycles say. So I'll hop in the comments. We'll kill some time. And if you want to ask me anything, ask me anything. I'll see if I can get there. Other than that, I guess we are about 45 minutes away from the CPI data coming out. And yeah, hopefully it's lower, right? Hopefully it's lower. Most of the market thinks it's sticky. I'm not in that camp of people, as you know. And that's kind of how I like it to be. I want to be positioned against the herd. But of course, it's been wobbly for a while. It does seem to be resuming disinflation as of last month. But for that to continue to play out, we do need to see another colder print. So it's a wild time to be alive for sure. I'm going to scroll up through some comments and see what I can find. Luke, Wolf, hello boys, Scott. There's loads of people in here, wow. I see Brody. Whole heap of members, hello everyone. Good stuff. Dixie looking weak, is it? I'm not sure. Thing just keeps going up as far as I can see. Oh, someone asked me to cover that VNQ short. I'll do that as well. Yeah, I mean, maybe, right? It could go either way from here. But the thing is, until they announce rate cuts, then we've got the ECB cutting rates. That makes up the euro, what, 57-ish% of this dollar basket. So if the Fed don't cut rates, then I don't see how this thing rolls over just yet. But of course, if we saw a lower CPI print and then come out and be dovish about cuts, then maybe we could see this thing roll over. That would certainly help things like the metals and Bitcoin and the stocks to have that final push. I forget who it was, someone asked me to cover this VNQ short. This has been one of the most boring trades I've ever held, to be honest. The stop has been choked up, so I've got almost no risk, and I've just not really been watching it. It does kind of look like it wants to break out from here, but it could certainly go either way, so we'll see. That's VNQ. What will the impact of CPI be? Well, like I just said, hopefully it's colder. I don't think it's the CPI that matters so much as its implications for rate cuts. Because, as I've shown a bunch of times, it's the rate cuts that are important, right? The market historically tops within 2 months of seeing the onset of a cutting cycle. So that's what I believe has been driving this melt up, right? The whole way through this, I think the market has been looking at the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of rate cuts. So all the while we keep looking ahead and saying they're going to cut rates in the not too distant future, the market keeps trying to price that in. But I believe that the more vertical we go, the closer we get to these cuts. And of course, those cuts historically mark the top within a couple of months. So the market can top first, it could top in the middle, it could top on the day of the cut, or it could top a couple of months after. But around 2 months wiggle room from the onset of the cutting cycle would tell us to expect a significant market top for the stock market. Am I prepared for ETH to actually brute force Bitcoin to run hard because of the liquidity coming for the ETF? I don't know. I don't really pay attention to ETH, to be honest. What happens if they don't cut for a significant period? Well, I think we've got two implications of that. The first implication is the markets can probably run higher because, again, they're going to keep front running higher prices ready for that onset of the cutting cycle. I also think that we start to get towards debt and currency crises if they're not going to cut, and the ECB already has, and so is the Bank of Canada and a bunch of other central banks, then this is probably going to continue to strengthen. We've probably got a full 3-year cycle ahead of us. Now, usually we only spend about a year going up and then 2 years going down. But, it's a really tough time. And I don't really think anyone should be championing a stronger dollar, to be honest. I think that's probably going to be more troublesome to deal with. But although that said, I mean, everything has been rallying in the face of a strengthening dollar, right? So don't forget Casper. Okay, Nasco, since you sent me some Casper. I mean, yeah, it's creeping up, right? It's creeping up. But for me, it's not really longable until we get that all-time high break. I do like the idea of this setup here, something like this, if it can do it. But so far, kind of just hanging around in no man's land. CPI is core production. No, consumer price inflation. What would I classify CPI to be surprisingly cold as? I think anything on a 2 handle would probably be surprisingly cold. Trueflation has us down sub 2%, I think. So that's kind of interesting. In fact, let's find Trueflation. Yeah, 23 hours ago, we were at 1.87% for Trueflation. There has been some divergence, and these guys are always a little bit ahead. But if we could be anywhere down on a 2 handle, I think that would be considered surprisingly cold. And I think the market would certainly melt up on that because, remember, the 2 has been the target that the Fed has been beating the drum of repeatedly. So anything with a 2 in front of it, I assume people will interpret as inflation is well under control and certainly on its way to the target. ETA for it's about 40 minutes until it's due. Will I be going short on the market when it signals? Yeah, I think I will. Now, it's easier said than done, of course, right? It's certainly easier said than done. Actually, no, let's use this one. Well, yeah, we'll use this one first. So, I mean, if this setup continues to play out, then this portion is coming next, right? So do you just want to be in cash? Nothing wrong with being in cash, but being short would certainly be better, in my opinion. If I look at this chart right here, right, we've got our 3 angles, as you know, that I love. If this continues and then we get a 3rd angle violation, then there's a really nice area on the chart to manage the risk around, right? Something like this. And the target would be way, way, way lower down. So the other thing about crashes like this, I mean, that C19 one, for example, it takes all this time to go from here to here and then 12 weeks or less to fall off a cliff. Kind of the same when you go back to this neighborhood as well. This doesn't take very long to crash. It takes a lot longer to go up than it does to come down. So there is certainly a chance to be short here, but it's not without its risks, of course, because at any moment they could announce a QE bomb and a return to outright Fed balance sheet expansion. And if they do, then you would have to scramble to cover the short pretty quick. But the idea is, if we do get the 3rd angle and then a breakdown, that's a pretty nice short. And it should at least yield somewhere in the neighborhood of 10%, I would have thought, at a minimum. And obviously, if it is a deflationary bust and a global recession, then a sweep of these lows makes perfect sense. So Yeah, that is the game plan. That's been the goal. But I don't like to think too far ahead of myself. I like to try to, we got bigger fish to fry right now, right? The first thing we got to do is actually figure out if this third angle is for real. And if it is, then we can think about selling the top and flipping short when it's actually time. But for all we know, this thing's going, I know David Hunter's just raised his target to north of 7,000. So I don't know if we can get that, but that's a pretty extreme move, right? Especially when you zoom out and look at it like this. So again, I don't know if that's coming for sure, but what I do know is if we do get a squeeze to the upside, the more vertical it goes, the more likely it is to violate spectacularly to the downside. So, but let's focus on trying to stay on the right side first, right? We've done pretty well at capturing capturing the move, hopping out when it was time to hop out, sitting on the sidelines. Like during this correction, for example, we were out, we did a bit of risk management here. We also got out the way a little bit early here, but then got back in, as you can see. So we've done pretty well at capturing the bulk of this move. And all I really want to do now is not get greedy, not behave like an amateur, which is where people start to go, it's a new paradigm, bro. AI's here, bro. And up only forever. Raoul Paul says liquidity doesn't peak until the end of next year. I don't want to get caught up in that and get greedy and start over leveraging. I just want to remember where we are, right? We're a business first, right? We're a professional first and a speculator second. I don't care about being right or wrong. I care about staying on the right side of the trade. And for now, that's the focus, right? How long can I stay long for before it becomes unreasonable to do so? And when it does, that's when I would start to think about selling and looking for short opportunities. Camel, English or Spanish? I'm English. No one's ever asked me that before. Also, as I often say, it's a wild time to be alive, right? And I'm not a football guy, but England are in the finals. And if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does. Okay, we have hot timelines at some point in the last couple of years, and this is not the same reality that we once lived in. Camel, love your spiritual insights lately. You often hint at tough times around 2030. You've almost made it seem like those without money around that time will not survive. Could you explain? Well, it will certainly be easier to survive if you've got money, right? If you've got a good network. It really depends on so many things. And not everyone's going to be affected in the same ways. But I think that's the biggest focus that people should have for the next few years, is trying to get hold of some assets that carry no counterparty risk and use them to preserve your purchasing power. Because this whole chart here, the melt up chart, right? And everyone's very good at looking at the white text and the yellow up here. But the pink text often goes unnoticed. And notice what it says the second line down, okay? Market finally bottoms when Fed launches record QE, 10 or 20 trillion. That is a lot of money, okay? That is a lot of money. And remember that what we tend to do is look at the C19 era, right? They printed, about 6 trillion? And we saw inflation reach double digits. And it was really double that in the real world. It's just they halved the number when they report the CPI, right? And so it's tempting to say, well, we were at 20% inflation and we're now on our way to 2%, right? But remember, that's 2% relative to 12 months ago when it was 20%, which is relative to 12 months before when it was 2%. So it's not that inflation is actually going backwards. Your loaf of bread at the supermarket isn't going to start to become cheaper. It's that the rate of acceleration is slowing. We're experiencing deceleration relative to the peak of that 6 trillion they printed during the pandemic era. And so now when we're going to add another 10 or 20 trillion, perhaps, okay, that is on top of all the elevated prices. So if you imagine, think back to pre-pandemic era, how much a loaf of bread cost or how much a week's shopping cost or whatever it is that you can think of, right? Think of something that pre-pandemic era cost a certain amount. You know full well, as we all do, that fast forward to today and that number is 3 or 4 times higher than it was, right? So what do you think is going to happen when they add 2, 3, even 3.5 times the amount of printing and QE that they did in the last 4 years on top of that? So your basket of shopping that maybe used to cost $20 before the pandemic now costs more like 60 or 80. Okay, what do you think happens when they add another 10 or 20 trillion to that? That's when this starts to become 200, right? And that is why I'm so pro physical gold, silver, and Bitcoin, acquiring assets, treating this like a business, because we don't have time to be messing around, measuring egos, saying to people, oh, you're invalidated on this, you're right, you're wrong. Okay, none of that matters. What matters is, are you catching the moves? Are you making money? And do you know how to preserve that money for when this QE bomb shows up? Because make no mistake, it will show up. It absolutely will show up. And when it does, you know, that's going to be really tough for a lot of people. A lot of people went from having plenty of money to speculate in the markets during lockdown when they were bored to now being very, very worse off. And also, the focus of this channel has been on these rate cuts, right? Are we close to seeing rate cuts? And I think we are. And whether I'm right or wrong about that, whether they come in a few months' time or 6 months' time, or whether I'm right that we will see them soon, it doesn't really matter, because at some point they are going to cut the rates. But after they've cut the rates and they normalize at the bottom, that's when they'll print again. And guess what? They're going to have to hike the rates up, and they're probably going to go to levels around twice what they are now. So you think about how damaging having interest rates where they are now has been for first-time buyers, for people that were over-leveraged on their mortgages, for people with record credit card debts. You know, cut the rates, things seem better for a while, but then add the 20 trillion QE and then have to hike rates to 10, 12, 15%. That's where life is going to get really, really hard for a lot of people. And that's why I keep saying that it's going to be tough. If you don't have a bunch of Bitcoin, gold and silver, if you don't know how to exit somewhere near the top and get back in somewhere near the bottom, then times could be a little tough. But that doesn't mean you have to live in fear. It doesn't mean we have to all be terrified of what's to come. It just means you got to try to have your wits about you a little bit. Do I also have a stance on real estate in Europe? I do, kind of. I think it's already topped, largely speaking. I think a lot of people don't want to admit it. I think CRE is in a whole heap of trouble and is going to cause some kind of banking problems. I also think, based on historical data, that once we see the first cut come in, the market typically continues to decline for another 6 months before it's kind of normalizes. So since they've already started cutting in Europe, we would kind of expect the property to come down in Europe for the next 6 months at least. Once we see the first cut in England, then again, 6 months later, we should expect to see a bottom come in for the housing market. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about that. Hi Reese, how you doing, brother? When do I think they cut rates? I think September's already kind of priced in, isn't it? But I've been in this camp of people that thinks it's coming sooner than that. Not a popular idea, I know. But I mean, right now, this could certainly reprice if we get a 2 handle today. I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying it could. And if we go out to September, then they're kind of priced in already, right? So probably September at the latest. But remember the bond market chart. Remember this, tell it to the bond market. Okay, why is that so significant? Because, where's my chart? I have to pull it up. I should have had this prepared, really. Somewhere around here. Oh, that's a great chart as well. We'll show that one. Where is it? Where is it? Getting closer. Yeah, here. So as I keep showing over and over again, okay, whenever we get the 2-year yield move lower, the Fed in orange cuts rates soon after, okay, in every single case. And of course, here, here, and here were big risk-off moments because they are not cuts into normalization like the others were. So if the 2-year yield starts to move lower, by the time we get somewhere in this neighborhood, okay, it tells us the cuts are coming any day now. And when we look at the 2-year yield, there it is, right? If I move this out of the way so we can be clear, we don't really need this roughly drawn line either, okay? By the time we get, I don't know, somewhere in this neighborhood, another 4 or 5% down, this is the bond market calling the Fed bluff. This is the bond market telling the Fed that it will indeed be cutting, right? Imagine this line down here. What does that tell us based on all other times? It tells us that the cuts are coming. So I think the market thinks September, but I think it could be sooner than that personally. Also something to point out in terms of going back to this idea of potentially some tough times ahead, okay? Notice how every time this oscillator resets, we get a sideways period for 14 or 16 years because these are 12-month candles. And what have we got at the hard right edge? Okay, coming off tells us that when this top comes in, it might remain the top for some time. And that would also fit with the fourth turn-in idea, right? Tough times for a while, and then first turn-in after the fake alien invasion. Camel, do you foresee the cost of living is only going up forever? Not necessarily, no. I think it goes up for a long time, probably to the end of the decade, maybe even beyond that. And then they probably have a new system that is gold backed and things get better for a while. That's what I think. And maybe there's a digital component to that. Maybe there's a CBDC component to that. Maybe it's not as nice as I think it might be, but I remain optimistic. Calls or puts on top ETFs today? I don't know. Let's see the CPI print first. What if they get and take physical assets like the US did when they went off the gold standard? I mean, they could do, right? There's the book, The Great Taking, that kind of suggests that is part of the game plan. I'm not convinced myself, but again, it speaks to having assets with no counterparty risk, right? The 3-month yield is more telling than the 2-year in terms of cuts. Is it? This chart looks weird. Oh, that's why. No, it's the same thing. I mean, wait, let's have a look. Yeah, it is rounding, right? But it hasn't started to move lower yet. When was the last time? Back here. Yeah, so it hasn't morphed into one of these looks yet, but it certainly could do. I mean, get below this kind of level here. And then maybe we've got a signal. Fake aliens, Project Bluebeam. Yeah. If you know, you know. If you missed the first 30 minutes, don't worry. I'll post it afterwards so you can watch it. Catch up if you're that interested. What would be a good way to invest 4K Bitcoin? I mean, you have to do your own research, bro. I can't tell you what to do with your money, but I've never heard of Bookmap. A chart looks like a toothbrush. Weirdest chart ever. Yeah, I agree. It's super weird. Now I can't unsee the toothbrush either. Most people won't own a Bitcoin. That worries me. Me calls my wife, babe, we have to sell our house immediately. My wife, I'm breaking up with you and taking the kids to mummy's place. Okay. Could I increase my mic volume? No, but I can hold it closer to my mouth and maybe that will be a bit better. My voice is kind of tired. I'm very dehydrated. I was working out before I hopped on this live stream. I haven't quite recovered just yet. What was my profession before coming to YouTube? I was a trader. That's what I was. I was a trader. I've been trading like 14 years. And before that, I was a scientist for Big Pharma, believe it or not. What are my thoughts on a 44k Bitcoin and flat till next year? I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Bitcoin dominance gone then, because I'm actually interested. Haven't seen this in a while. I mean, no progress really, right? No progress. Trendline breakdown, but still. Wait, if I draw, let's put a line in somewhere. I'll get a box. Let's get a box. Grab this. Connect those highs. Kind of still trading in there, right? So not true breakdown. Doesn't mean it can't roll over. If it does, of course, I think that's kind of bullish altcoins, right? But what if Bitcoin is about to find a weekly and daily cycle low and move towards the top of its range at the minimum, liquidating all those shorts above 64, 65k-ish? Then is this not going to do this? I think it probably will. That's my thoughts, but I'm not an altcoin guy, as you know. CPI is out in about 20 minutes. What's my split? I got a bro split. I do legs, chest and side delts, back and rear delts, and then I do arms and calves, and then I repeat the whole thing. No rest days. Because they're for other people. What level does Bitcoin need to break for me to get excited? For me to get excited, I mean really excited, that's a different thing. So for me to be encouraged, we need to get above this red downward sloping resistance line. Yeah, so somewhere a good close above 61k, and that's enough for me to get long with a stop below this cycle low. For me to get excited, we really need to clear the prior all-time high at 73.7-ish, depending on what exchange you're using. So this high from back on the 15th of March, get above there, and then I start to get quote-unquote excited. But I can get long around 61k. Thoughts on Theta Fuel and H-Bar? I don't know what any of that is. H-Bar's an altcoin, right? So I'm guessing the others are. No, I'm not an altcoin guy. I don't know. There is still gas left in this goose, you're right. There is. Do you ever think... do you think we probably save for 2 years trading ETF, gold, silver, and physical? I don't know. I mean, I trade a lot of futures. I trade a lot of spread betting on those markets. And I even spread bet the ETFs for short-term positions. But the best thing to do, well, I can't tell you what to do, but the thing I like to do is take the profit and buy physical with it. So that's kind of how I've always done it. I use the spread betting as a tool to generate fiat. And then because that's tax efficient, I can go and buy physical with it. But I am very distrusting of ETFs. And I think most people just don't realize as well that, I've said this a bunch of times, if you pull up the KIDS document, the key investor information document, somewhere in there, in every single one of them is a sentence that says, if we lose your money or go broke, we don't have to pay you anything. And the moment you buy the ETF, you accept those terms and conditions. Kind of like a bank, right? You go into a bank and you sign the paperwork and it basically says, this isn't my money anymore. So for me, I don't really like that. I don't really like that personally. Can I talk about precious metals? I kind of already did. I'm going to make a members video, see you remember, so I'll sort that out. The idea is that we're due a cycle low and I don't see one, so I'm hoping to get that. Invalidation is a break above the highs, and if we get that, then we can get long. And there's an outside chance that, say we find a daily cycle low, do something like this, roll over daily and weekly cycle, that comes from there, and then we go. But either way, I'm pretty flippin' bullish, to say the least, because I think something akin to this, or even this, is coming next, up to 3k, and then I think we get a big shakeout. So yeah, that's my thoughts. And what, $60 silver probably, 50 at least. I would think we get a big squeeze here, 50, 60, 65, something like that. Thoughts on Ada Cardano? I mean, social credit scores for children, not really my bag. Actually, let's look at the chart for the memes. Actually, wow. I mean, bruh. I don't know. What am I supposed to say about that? I mean, it's close to its bear market lows, isn't it? When was the bear market lows? I don't know, man. I don't know why you do it to yourself. Doesn't mean it can't pump, just means I don't care if it does. Any takes on Ethereum? I don't like Ethereum. I don't respect Ether. I don't like the corruption surrounding it. I don't like the fact it changed its monetary policy 7 or 8 times in the last 7 years or 6 years, whatever it is. But the chart does look an awful lot like it wants to pump. It does. It does look like that's completed an ABC and is now about to move higher. So, yeah, that's what I think. Fundamentally, I hate it. I think it's a complete joke. I've never heard a sound argument against it. I just hear people go, oh, you're such a maxi. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not. They really did change the monetary policy every 8 or 9 months for the past 6 or 7 years. There really is no upper supply limit, right? People talk about it being deflationary because it burns. Well, what's the issuance schedule? Nobody knows because it hasn't been decided. I can do this all day. I'm not going to do it because people just get rubbed up the wrong way and they just call me a maxi. But I'm not really a maxi. You can't counter my arguments because they're not opinions or me fudding Ethereum. They are just objective facts and truth. It is also joked about lovingly as JP Morgan coin, and if you don't know why, then go and look at the ETHgate thing. I mean, that doesn't mean you couldn't hold it. It doesn't mean it's not going to pump. Like I said, the chart actually looks bullish. I would not at all be surprised if it does 6 or 7k, but it's just not for me. And fundamentally, I do think it's kind of a joke. I do think it's pretty corrupt, but so is a lot of things, right? And that doesn't really mean anything. I've never been to Belgium. How do I see crypto alts like IXS? I've never heard of IXS in the hot CPI. I don't think alts, I've been saying the same thing over and over and over again. I don't think alts are going to, broadly speaking, take part in this rally. I think, broadly speaking, Bitcoin is going to be the king. Bitcoin is going to put in a way higher top than most people are ready for. Most people seem to think that it can't go much higher than 80 or 90k, and they certainly think it can't go higher than 100k. I think Bitcoin is going to go way, 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 way higher, and a handful of alts are going to do way, way, way better. But the majority of alts are just going to look like that ADA chart. That's been the base case the entire time. I've been very consistent. Anyone that's a channel OG or has been watching me for any length of time has heard me say this hundreds of times. This has always been the base case, that most alt charts would look like this, and then when Bitcoin tops, they're going to do that. That's been the base case, and I don't know if I'm wrong. If I am, it doesn't matter because I'm not heavily in alts. I think I only hold 2 or 3 at the moment, and they're small positions that I don't care about. So, you know, it's not me being a toxic maximalist. It's just the whole base case was that most alts wouldn't do well. And I know some have done very well. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. And if you caught them, well done. Then you did better than I did. But yeah, it's hard for me to get excited about it because when I see this chart, that's exactly what I thought would happen. And people are very quick to say, well, look at this one. Like, what? What happened? Are we still live? Are we still live? Something happened to my OBS. Can someone let me know? Can you still hear me? Someone's saying lag. Welcome back. Are we back? Can you hear me? Still live. Okay, happy days. I don't know what that was. That's never happened before. CPM, hello, mate. Comments are moving too fast to see your comments, CPM. Spook the market's going live. Yeah, nah, it's not me. It's not me. They're already spooky. Yep, we're expecting we're expecting a colder CPI print. I've lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was talking about. I think I was just bashing altcoins and being a maxi. Just had to refresh. Yeah, it just said it stopped working for some reason, and then it seemed to come back on. I don't know what that was. Good day from Australia. Hello, mate. Am I wearing pants? Shorts. What do I think about AMC stock? Don't know. Not tracking it. 1 hump or 2 humps. Will I long 100x? I never long 100x anything, let alone a cold print, especially because there's lots of volatility in chop and games. What do I think? Like Bitcoin miner charts, they look really good. They're holding up really well. And most of the ones we've got as positions are in profit. So happy days. And particularly the core allocation of the handful that I picked up at the lows, the 4-year cycle lows, they've done really, really well. So MicroStrategy stock split. Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me, to be honest. Same thing with Nvidia, right? Do I see silver and Bitcoin crashing along with the market? I see both of them crashing initially, and I think silver will be first and fastest to recover along with gold. I think Bitcoin will probably have to find that cycle low, that 4-year cycle low at the end of 2026. How do I scan the market? I don't really. I just have my watch list of a handful of assets and I trade the same ones over and over again. Any take on total 3? Not really. Looks pretty bad. I mean, who knows, right? I'm not an altcoin guy. I don't know. Is that a completed ABC before the 5th? I mean, if you're an altcoiner, you hope so, right? But also, objectively speaking, it looks like a pretty severe breakdown, new lows, and it's contained below that downward sloping red resistance line. So I don't know. For me to even think about getting excited, it needs to do something like this. Yeah, kind of hard for me to get excited about that. CPI data is in 12 minutes, I think. Would I ever do OnlyFans? No, I would not. Nobody wants to see my camel tail. Trust me. What does cold CPI print mean? It means we're getting closer to seeing rate cuts and the markets will front run the onset of the cutting cycle. Am I a Fed plant? I don't know. I think one day people are going to work out who I really am. But that time is not yet. Camel is too intelligent for altcoins. Or I'm too dumb. Maybe I'm too dumb. Maybe I'm too risk adverse. I think with altcoins, for me, it's always been about staying in my lane, right? Like, a lot of people get really upset about gold. They're like, oh, boomer metal. Oh, well, it only moves 3% in a week, right? Whatever. But I can make a living just on this one chart, trading the daily cycles, right? I can actually do that. And same for the S&P, right? People go, oh, well, on an average year, it only does 6 or 7%. I'm not here for that. I'm here for 1,000x. Okay, fine. But in an average year, trading a few of these cycles, right? Getting long, capturing this, getting out, getting long, capturing this, getting out, getting long, capturing this. Okay, I can make a living out of that. But whenever I buy an altcoin, the thing does well for 3 or 4 days, and then I wake up the next day and it's either stopped me out or gapped so far down below my stop. It doesn't it doesn't even trigger my stop. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on here? I just can't do it. And like, maybe I'm rubbish, or maybe it's just smart to sort of know where your limitations are. And for me, I would rather just trade this boring stuff over and over again and wait 40 days and buy a cycle low than I would try to, you know, catch a 1,000x return on an altcoin. Like, I'm okay with taking my time. I'm okay with just consistently finding a cycle low and riding it until the trend line breaks down. And I know that's really boring for some people, but this isn't noble stuff, right? It's trading. Am I Ryan Giggs? Is that the footballer Ryan Giggs? I don't know. I'm not. Is he good at markets? Two humps. The double hump daddy. Do I see precious metals going down if the market crashes? Yeah, initially I do. But again, first and fastest to recover. So where's that C19 plunge? Somewhere back here. Right? This is what I think. I think initially we get a violent sell-off. And this might not look like much, but for metals to drop 14% in a couple of weeks, that's significant, right? That's not nothing. And then look what happens after, right? It responds first and fastest, V-shaped recovery. So that's kind of what I expect. I think we saw a similar thing back in the 2008 crisis, right? So it does well for a while. Wait, where's the onset of the recession? Somewhere in here. Either way, right? We get this big top to bottom crash, something like this. Right, 34% decline, and then it goes on to do massive numbers. And I think that's kind of where we are today. I think, but the good news is, this back here, either this or this, is the start of an 8-year bull cycle. I'd say probably this. And so that's why that fractal of mine that says we do something like this makes a lot of sense to me. And there's a good chance, as I showed earlier, that we might already be there. So, yeah, anyway. That's what I think. But there will be a shakeout. There will be a violent crash. There always is. How do I put my chart back? Like this. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the $5. What color is my Lambo? What's the fastest car I've driven? What is your daily driver? Why do you want to ask me so many personal questions, brother? When Banana Zone, any advice to someone who wishes to learn to be a trader in the current market conditions? in the years to come. Yeah, take your time, go slow. Take your time, go slow. Learn to manage risk first. Everything else comes second. US 2-year going up at the moment. Is it? I bet if I look at this chart, it's barely moving. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a green candle, right? But that doesn't do it for me. That doesn't do it for me. There's 2 repairs that need to be made. There's one there, right? Until we get above there, it's absolutely still in a downtrend. And even if it does, then we still need to do something like this, right? Above here for full invalidation. So yeah, that's that. 7 minutes till CPI. Do I wear crew socks or ankle socks? I don't like socks. I avoid socks as much as I can. The only time I put socks on is if I'm going out and I need to wear trainers, or when I wear my welly boots in the morning to walk the dog. Other than that, I hate wearing socks. They squeeze my toes together and I don't like it. Do you count the blackout in your calculations to survive and make money for the monetary reset? Yeah, there's going to be a big blackout. Going to be a big blackout for sure. Mining stocks, they're bullish. I like them. They've done well. In terms of will I wait for games to be played? Yeah, normally it's good to give it an hour to let the dust settle, but it really depends. It depends on the setup at the time. Activate the cracked windows. No can do. What's my take on Litecoin, Bitcoin? Bruh. Everything's going to zero against Bitcoin. That's the thing. Everything. Do I smoke Camel cigarettes? No, I don't, but I do smoke cigs. And the occasional cigar. And of course, crack. What's a blackout? We're talking about a global cyber attack that's a false flag incident that puts the power down for a couple of weeks worldwide so that they can blame Russia or North Korea and then reboot the system. If CPI is under 3, you'll send me $20. Okay, deal. I don't really like indicators for TA. As you can see, I don't have any. Price is price. Activate crack pipe. Yep. What are my signals to sell the top time? Preferably before a blackout. Yeah, the blackout is a bit concerning, I'm not going to lie. But I think that's later in the decade. I don't think we've got to worry about that this cycle. And I think by the time it comes, we'll be able to exit this cycle, get back in at the bear market lows, and then lock it down until after the blackout. That's what I think. Thoughts on Chinese tech recovery? No strong opinion. Camel OG Kush. Nah, weed is bad for you. Don't smoke weed. I mean, do whatever you want to do, but we don't have time, right? We're in the middle of a reset. We ain't got time to sit around smoking joints. Smoke crack instead, so you can have the energy to keep focusing and work harder. 2.9% year over year. I'll take it. That will be, for me, that will be the best case scenario. Any thoughts on UK elections? Not really. I seldom even know who our Prime Minister is. I don't know anything about politics. I don't really believe voting works. I haven't for a long, long time. I do, however, think they probably handed this election over early so they could blame whoever is currently our leader. That's a silly word. Frontman. They're probably going to blame that dude, whoever that is, for the recession, right? I think that's probably what we're going to see. But of course, it won't be their fault. It will be the central bank's fault. And of course, the central banks are really who control the voting system and everything else. Camel or Lambo? Sol USD, Solana. I mean, it's okay, right? It's okay, but number one, the reason it pumped so much to begin with was because it went down so much top to bottom. Top to bottom, it was down, what, like 97%? So a lot of people are like, yeah, wow, look at it. It did 10x right out of the gate. Yeah, but that's only because it fell 97%. Most altcoins didn't fall 97% top to bottom. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, until it recovers the downward slope in red, then no one cares, right? It's still a breakdown retest, possible resumption lower. I do think this coin is probably in the handful that will do well. If I had to guess, now I don't know because I'm not an altcoin guy, but if I had to guess, this is probably one that will... I mean, it's got a lot of VCs, right? And they need to get paid. Solana, BTC. Doing okay, right? Holding up. But again, until it can break out and resume higher, then, I don't know, caution is probably warranted. All right, we're 2 minutes out. We are 2 minutes out. What do I think of PAX G? I don't like it. I don't like the idea. It's more risky than an ETF, and you still don't get to own it, right? It's susceptible to hacks. It's susceptible to government regulation, kind of seize and freeze, and all of this stuff. And just own physical. I don't know why you want PAX Gold. I don't know why you'd want ETFs either, personally, but to each their own, right? Thoughts on USDT? Is it backed? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I don't think there's anything wrong with Tether at all. It doesn't make sense. They've got a very small team. All they have to do is take people's money, invest it in treasuries, and slurp a few billion a year for doing nothing. They don't have to do anything. It's probably the smartest business model ever created. And everyone likes to say, yeah, well, there's probably foul play because they don't want to do an audit. That's not true. The big four auditors don't want to audit them. So it's not, I don't think it's shady. It doesn't make sense. If you and a team of 7 other people, okay, could just take a few billion, a year, or sorry, excuse me, it could take billions a year. All you have to do is handle the banking stuff and give people a stable coin, right? And then back that by treasuries and slurp the yield. Why would you engage in foul play? Would you not just be comfortable to put your feet up on the desk and slurp a few billion a year, right? Split between a team of 7 or 8 people. Of course you would. It doesn't make sense for there to be foul play there. And even if there is, relative to the market cap of Bitcoin, okay, it's not going to do anything. If it blows up, then Bitcoin will sell off 20-25%, and then Tether will be gone, and then Bitcoin will recover because it doesn't actually affect Bitcoin, right? The market cap of Tether is so small compared to Bitcoin that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, Bitcoin doesn't care. So we should have some CPI data. Let's hit refresh. There's always a bit of a lag. Where is it? Why has it just disappeared? First time this has happened. Or am I blind? Where is it? There we go. Okay, so we came in at 3. In fact, as I said last time, let me put the numbers in and then we'll talk about it. So we got a 3.0 year over year, which is cold. Not as cold as I would have liked. I would have liked to see that 2 handle, but we got minus 0.1 month over month. Wow. Okay. Getting better. 3.3. Okay, that's also cold. Happy days. And month over month, 0.1. Okay, so it is coming down. It is coming down. Let me do a quick check. 3, 0.1, negative. 3, 0.1, negative. 3.3, 0.1, 3.3, 0.1. Hit, post. So there you go. Yeah, it's cold. It's cold. So, I mean, is it super cold? Not really. But is it going in the right direction? Yes. And direction is what matters, right? It's going in the right direction. So happy days. I mean, it's cold. Deflationary month over month as well. Okay. No, that's not nothing. That is not nothing. Core keeps coming down as well. Again, not nothing. So the Fed could probably sit here and say with some level of confidence that things are going more or less in the direction they want them to. Are we going to get surprise rate cuts, or is that going to be pushed back for a bit? That's to be determined. Let's take a quick look at how the markets are reacting. Bitcoin trading above 59k. So no breakout as of yet, but initially responding positively. Gold looking to get a push up. So probably going to address this in the member section in a minute. Silver likes it too, apparently. And what about the stock market? Probably got a little bit of a gap up, okay? So I would say certainly not necessarily the time to be aping into anything and everything, because they do like to play games. They do like to reverse this thing intraday. But overall, things are going the way they're supposed to go, right? Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you, Evie. Is that Mrs. Thomas? My bad. But thank you. Yeah, so happy days, right? Happy days, happy days, happy days. What about the Dixie? Okay. This is good. This is good, right? This is what we want to see. And tell it to the bond market. Tell it to the bond market. Yo. What a wild time to be alive, man. This is crazy. So all those people that say sticky inflation, right? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? No sticky inflation as of yet. So we're on our way, right? We're on our way. I would have liked to seen it a little bit colder, if I'm honest. But again, the bond market always knows first, right? Are we, where's that chart? There. Are we or not now morphing into one of these looks? Okay. Are we now coming off here? Because it looks to me like we are. Okay. If we go here on a weekly time frame, okay, there it is. So let me zoom out a bit. You can see, if I go to this chart here, we're already halfway down this thing. We're somewhere in this neighborhood, okay? So take out that low and cuts are coming, okay? Not much further to go, really, if we're honest. So I like what I'm seeing. Again, I say tell it to the bond market. Things are moving, roughly speaking, in the direction they're expected to. Bitcoin's got a little bit of follow through to do before, like I said, we're back above that area where I want to get long, but I think we're more or less there. Gold is the only problem child. There's no clear sign of a daily cycle low here. So unless that was a half cycle inversion, maybe, but I'm not convinced. Anyway, I'll talk about this with the members. Stock market should continue to melt up. I would have thought. Let's take another look here. Gap's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I wonder if these are going to start to push and gap higher. Yeah, I think it's third angle time. I really do. I've been saying it for a long time, and to be fair, I was a bit premature. I often am. Ask the wife. Oh, I'm so stupid. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I'm often a bit premature in terms of entry for markets, and I was a little bit over bullish here. But if we go back to this time, right, you got to think. If I draw a vertical line in here, pre this blue line, right? In fact, let me illustrate this on a clean chart. Let me grab a clean chart really quickly. Which one of these is clean? One of these is clean. Oh, did you see that as well? Look at that, second angle. Is that, or is that not being held quite nicely, right? Something to take note of. Anyway, what was I going to say? I was going to say, where is it? There, this one. If I get my replay tool and go back to somewhere in this neighborhood, okay? When we were looking at this as a chart, you got to understand, from the bear market lows, from in here, okay, I was calling for an all-time high before the halving, a left translated cycle. And every man and his dog told me that I was wrong and I was making up terms. What even is a left translated cycle? Why are you trying to be different? Bitcoin's never done that before. The whole way up, right? And only here did people start to say, you know what, he might be right. And then, of course, what happened was I was like, yeah, it seems like it's got all the familiar symptoms. Only makes sense that we keep going. And of course, we had to work out an ABC correction, as you can see here. Okay. So I think in here, a whole heap of people that jumped on the bandwagon late then realized, okay, this thing's become consensus. Let's wash them out. I think they're now flushed. And I think that does set us up to see the resumption of this, which will ultimately be left translated, or even if I'm slightly wrong, early next year. But again, it's not really about picking the month, is it? It's about staying long until it becomes unreasonable not to, and trying to sell the top. So overall, I like what I see here. We have, in theory, got a full daily and weekly cycle behind us. We're not confirmed. We're not out of the woods, okay? But we could possibly do that. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So overall, yeah, I think things are going in the right direction. Ask the wife. I can see. I'm just laughing because I've only just pulled the comments back up. Yeah. Anyway, Long and strong on the crack pipe. I think that's where we'll end it. If you're a level 3 member, look out for the video because I'll show you what I'm thinking about doing and the things I'm looking for. Thank you for all the well dones and that. Predicted it. You're more like a magician. Yeah, I don't know about that. More like a stopped clock, I think. But anyway, that means a couple of times a day we can be right about something. So, yep. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you. I just got a new £5. Oh, thanks to the people that joined the membership as well. If you're a level 3 member that's just joined, look out for a video. And after I posted that, maybe go back another video or two ago and catch up on what we've been doing and why. Do you want a huge double-sided 3D printed Bitcoin? Thanks for all you do. Yeah, I'd love one. There's a PO box you can send it to. And if anyone wants to send me something to the PO box, feel free to do it. If you've got a business as well, I'll shout your business out, put a business card in there, show me what you can do with your business, and I'll give your business a shout out on the channel. Yeah, thank you ever so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Play the outro song. Yeah, all right, we'll do that. I'll leave you with the outro song. And thank you again for being here. I'm your boy Camel. Until next time, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Oh, hold up. I'm not ready. This one. What, monetary cake? That's my favorite one, I think. All right. I'm your boy Camel. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.
Money makes the world go round. In the fantasy, what happened? Will it stop turning? Let's find out. Stealth QE for the banks. Rates need to stay high. Changing the CPI data, insist it ain't a lie. Misdirection by the media, keep everyone in line. Get yourself another loan, everything will be just fine. Oops, tax increase. Peasants, how do you feel? Cost of living still okay, or can't afford your meal? Oops, credit delinquencies reach for the sky. Don't you dare to stop and think that this cake might be. Just work 3 part-time jobs on benefits, try to make ends meet. You don't need a steady one to buy that mansion down the street. Some mortgages in a CD or pension funds will gobble up. And when the housing market does implode, bailouts will hit like a truck. Oops, tax increase. Peasants, how do you feel? Cost of living still okay, or can't afford your meal? Oops, credit delinquencies reaching for the sky. Don't you dare to stop and think this cake might be a lie. Let's rationalize rampant shoplifting, make skin color a perk. Blocking all streets for climate change, people can't get to work. Endorse mostly peaceful protests, expecting shops to stay. Won't let you cry about the prices when they eventually move away. All the banks are safe and sound, nothing will go wrong. Jobs gotta looking mighty fine, economy holding strong.